remember, never assume what the seller will or will not do. And then number two, if you don't ask, you're not going to get. Okay. So you must ask for what you want.
Welcome to the No Limits Podcast, where limits do not exist, where you can create cash flow, equity, and real freedom with the power of real estate.
3, 4. Now, we will begin.
Welcome to the dojo. The dojo.
How to structure creative real estate deals that'll explode your cash flow and build your net worth. That's the topic of today's show. And specifically, we're going to talk about something called subject to deals, something near and dear to my heart. But before I jump in today's show, I want to direct you over to nextlevelwholesaling.com. If you have not taken the wholesaling assessment there, you got to go out there and go to the website and take the assessment. It's going to actually rate you in the 4 core areas of your wholesaling business. This is marketing, acquisition, disposition, and accounting, right? Counting being how much money are you actually keeping at the end of the day. So if you go there, I actually made this assessment for me so I could score myself. And I found that a lot of people were really interested on where they were, right? And once you know where you're at, it's going to become crystal clear on that very next step that you're going to have to take to build your real estate business to the spot where you can then step out and have this thing throw off cash month after month after month. And if you're just starting out, please feel free to go over there and take the assessment. It'll really open your eyes and give you a clear vision of where you're going in your real estate business. All right, so let's talk about subject to deals. And you know me, I love to tell stories and give you real life examples. This stuff is not theory. It's not classroom stuff. It's actually on the street, right? So we're going to talk about the actual street fight today and how you can use this technique really to build your cash flow and your net worth. So quite a few years ago, and when I say quite a few years ago, this is back in 2012, okay? I actually ran into a real estate deal that was brought to me by a real estate agent, and I always recommend building your relationships with agents because with agents, you're going to find that you can do creative deals that other people can't, right? That other people look at and say there's nothing here or there's no meat on the bone and there's no deal here. And I'm really going to emphasize something here. Never assume what a seller will or won't do. That is the number 1 rule of creative finance. And the number 2 rule of creative finance is that if you don't ask, you won't get. Okay, so you better be looking for these deals. And then number 2 is that you better be asking for some great terms. So back in 2012, I had a real estate agent friend bring me a house where the seller was extremely motivated, but she was really stuck on her price. I remember she wanted a price of $200,000 for this property, and it was in a so-so area of San Diego, right? If you can say that about San Diego, but it was in an okay area. And, you know, I knew the rental demand was there, and the seller, she had a loan on the property of about $130,000 from Bank of America, and she wanted $200,000 for the property, which was about the value of the property. And the agent who brought me the property also wanted a full commission. You know, that is the way that Victoria was. And by the way, I totally value her. She had brought this to some other investors who were going to fix it and flip it. And they said, no, you know, there's just not enough meat on the bone. I've got to get it for a lot less. This lady wants full retail price, especially since Victoria wanted her full real estate commission, which I totally appreciate. So I met with Victoria and I met with the sellers, and man, they were motivated, right? But sometimes you have a seller who's got a problem or a challenge and they're motivated to get the deal done, but for whatever reason, they're going to stick to their price. So it's going to be your job now to find these pain and pleasure points, right? Where you can give the seller what they want and help them move on to the next phase in an area now where you can make a profit, right? You got to find that sweet spot where you could meet the seller's needs and you could find a way to make a giant profit. By the way, I made a giant profit on this deal. So stay tuned, follow with me here on the details because I'm going to get in the nitty gritty. So we sat down with the seller and her husband, and she begins to tell me that her son lives in the property rent-free. And oh boy, this is my favorite kind of real estate deal. The siren should be going off. You should hear the cash register, because if you run into a parent with a child in the property or a grandparent with a grandchild in the property, man, it is coming. There's a deal to be made. And so I just want to give you that heads up that if you've been listening to me for any period of time, anytime you hear about this scenario, you know that you can offer a lot of value. And so the son was not paying rent. She was stuck on her price. And I started to ask some questions, right, about the underlying loan. So she owed $130,000 from Bank of America. It had a reasonable interest rate, I think about 5%. Not as low by today's standards. And the payment on this loan with taxes and insurance and everything was right around $1,000, right? I knew that I could immediately rent this place for $1,800. So I asked the seller, now remember, never assume what the seller will or will not do. And then number two, if you don't ask, you're not going to get, okay? So you must ask for what you want. So I said, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I said, what if I could give you full price for the house? I'll give you $200,000. I'll pay Victoria's real estate commission out of my pocket, and that's a full 6%, right? That was $12,000, right? But here's the kicker. Okay, I've got to find a way to make some money. So I'll give you your price, but I need some terms, right? So let me take over this existing loan, right? I'm not going to assume the loan. I'm just going to leave it in place, and I'm going to continue to make payments. Right, we'll go through a licensed title and escrow company. I'll get the deed to the property. This loan will stay on the property, and I will make payments, to be clear. Then there's about $70,000 that you're owed here, your equity in the property. And so what I'll do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is I'll give this money to you in 7 years in one big lump sum. So you don't have to bother with payments. And I'm just going to give this the one big fat lump sum of 70 grand to you in 7 years, right? And I broke that down into months, by the way. So I think it was 72 months, right? 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, no, 84 months. 84 months. So I tried to negotiate, I remember now, 120 months. She said no. And so then we negotiated down to 84 months. And it was a tough negotiation at the table, but it was zero interest. And I pretty much got in that deal for the closing cost at the title and escrow company. And I paid Victoria a $12,000 check. I remember I just wrote it to her at the table, $12,000, and I got the deed to the property. Now, needless to say, the son who was living in the property rent-free, who was not very nice to his mother, he was extremely disrespectful, completely entitled. I paid him to move out. I gave him $2,000 to move out, or I told him I was going to have to evict him, cleaned the property out, and rented it to somebody for $1,800. Okay, now this is the beauty of this, right? Of course, there is some, maintenance on the property over time, but you can see that I was making about $800 a month, right? This is called cash flow. One of the beautiful parts about a rental and when you hold on to a deal. Now, if you know anything about real estate, since 2012, real estate has been on a tear and going up. And if you hold on to real estate for the long term, there will be ups and there will be downs and there will be waves of emotion, but real estate will always go up over the long term, at least at the pace of inflation, if you give it enough time. So that's one of the benefits. What other benefit did I get to this deal? Because I'm going to talk about the profit here in a second. The other thing about this loan is that it was pretty old. It was at least 10 years old, right? And so it was being paid off. And if you know anything about a mortgage or a loan, is that the majority of the interest on a loan is paid up front, right, in those first years. And so since this 10 years had already passed, the principal is going down every single month. So every single month I was paying that mortgage, right? $300 a month going towards the principal, $350, $400, right? $450, $500 a month. Every single month that loan balance is going down tremendously. I also had depreciation, so I got a little bit of a tax break while I owned this property. Now let's talk about the kicker. Right, from 2020, and I sold this property in 2019, right, about a year and a half ago. The value of that property went from $200,000 to about $465,000. So You could say Todd made $265,000, but I made all the cash flow. I also had some of the depreciation, which shifted some of my tax liability, and I had some loan pay down, and it was not a small number, right? If it was a $130,000 loan, I think I paid it down about 20 grand, so 110. So if you take 465, you subtract 110, you got some closing cost in there. I think when I sold it, I paid, I don't know, about 8 grand to get it all fixed up. Do the math, and that is a lot of money. That was a good day, right? And that was long-term capital gains, which is tax preferable to active income. Now, this was a deal that a bunch of rehabbers passed on, right? There was no meat on the bone, but because I was able to get in front of the seller, I was able to have a conversation. I didn't assume what they would or would not take. I got in for zero down, with the exception of the real estate agent. By the way, always take care of your real estate agents. This is really, really important. I know that we said zero down, but you've got to pay those agents, preferably up front. They will take money on the back end, but you got to take care of them. And they're going to bring you deal after deal after deal after deal after deal. And you're going to see your cash flow and your net worth start to explode. Obviously, I don't do this for every single deal. The majority of business in my single family wholesaling operation is wholesaling, but we run into these deals now and then, and we're able to put together win-win solutions that is going to explode your cash flow and your net worth. Now, you may be thinking, Todd, what about the due on sale clause, right? Did you assume it? How does that work? I'm not going to get into the total weeds, but let me talk a little bit about why some people don't do these deals, right? There's some fear involved in this due on sale clause, meaning that in most mortgages or loans, when the title transfers, there's a clause in that note that says that the loaning company, right, the bank, has the right to call the loan due, meaning they have the right to say this needs to be paid off in full. Now, the key word there is the right, okay, the right. I have done dozens and dozens and dozens of these deals, and because we've always stayed current on the payments, we've never had a problem, right? Me personally, I largely ignore the due on sale clause, right? I actually take title in my entity. I don't try to hide it with some kind of land trust like some other people do. I just roll the dice, take title, and just make the payments, and make no secret that I don't make it a secret that I actually have title and I'm making the payments. And I haven't had any problems in 21 years of real estate investing, nor have any of my students. So if that could put you at ease, use it. If not, hey, don't do the deal. It's not for everybody. And there are more ways to protect yourself. But I can tell you in this scenario, I'm really, really, really glad that I did this deal. And maybe you should consider doing some yourself.